This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings. Online at madeformorerealty.com.
On the show today, we have somebody that landlords love, tenants fear, and is an all-around good guy. In all seriousness, this dude has one of the biggest hearts I know of, and it's an absolute joy and honor to have Barry Mathis on the show today. Thanks for being on the show, Barry.
Hey, Johnny, I really appreciate that, and we will try to keep the big heart part to ourselves. That doesn't help my tenant relations.
That's okay. I know. But here's the thing is that you run a successful property management company, right? Expert property management. And so let's talk about that a little bit, because people are always comparing, hey, if I can't, so the number one thing I'm hearing right now is I'm going to wait till spring to sell my house. That's the number one thing. The second most common thing I hear is, if I can't sell my house, I'm going to rent it out. So what is happening in the wonderful world of renting? How are rents looking right now?
You know, I think it's we've been coming off the back of a couple of years of rent increase after rent increase after rent increase. And for lack of a better word, I'm going to use a word that I think you might be familiar with. I think the market's kind of tired. And why might you be familiar with that, Johnny?
Well, I know what you're getting at because of the little event I did on Sunday.
Yeah, man. That's what I'm excited about. That is so awesome that you ran out and did a full Ironman. That is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, my wife is glad it's over because now she doesn't have to hear me complain about training anymore.
Yep. That was an incredible day for you. So I just want to celebrate that with you. And it's awesome. I mean, I cannot imagine 15 hours and 22 minutes to do that.
Yep. So think about what you were doing at 7:30 on any given day in the morning, and then imagine finishing around 10:30 at night.
Oh my goodness! So you had a long bike run.
Yep. So it was a 2.4 mile swim, followed by a 112 mile bike ride, followed by a full marathon, 26.2 miles.
Oh my goodness! And which part was the worst for you?
The bike, by far.
By far,
hands down.
And what do you think that caused that?
I wasn't as prepared on the bike.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it comes back to the same thing everybody always says, training, right?
People said the bike's the easiest part. So I was like, okay, I'll do some training. But I tell you what, I'd only biked 56 miles prior to that, so half the distance. And it's a whole nother animal going another 56. So
wow. Well, that's incredible. I think that's something you're going to be able to carry with you for the rest of your life. And the fact that you started something and you didn't finish. I mean, you started something and you didn't quit before you finished. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
So many people start stuff, and I see this in the real estate community a lot. So many people start stuff and then quit, and they don't give it enough time. They don't dedicate to the fact that they're going to actually do it.
Yeah.
You know, somebody asked me the other day, I had some young people that were getting married. We just went to a wedding, and they talked about, what's the secret to a good marriage? I said, the secret is take away the option of quitting.
Absolutely.
If you take the option of quitting off the table, then you don't quit.
You got to figure it out.
Yeah, you got to figure it out. Now, there's some reasons why you'd have to quit, abuse being one of those, and sometimes infidelity being one of those. But other than those two big rainmakers, you should take quitting off the table for your marriage.
Yeah, so I remember vividly driving back from Kalinga to Bakersfield. Valley Ridge from Bakersfield. I was from Kalinga. And we were having this conversation. We'd only been together maybe 30, 45 days at this point. And the subject of marriage came up, and I was like, hey, just so you know, like, if I don't believe in divorce, that is not an option. Like, that is not an option that's on the table. And not to get too heavy too early in the relationship, but the conversation was kind of going that way, so it wasn't like out of the blue. It was like not like I was just sitting there driving, listening to country music, and then said, by the way, and she said, yeah, me neither. That's not an option for me either. And at that point, I was like, ooh, this chick's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we haven't been married for very long. We've been married since 2013, so what is that, 12, 13 years? So, but not having that option on the table has definitely helped us weather some storms. How long have you been married?
29 years.
29, coming up. When's the big 3-0?
The big 3-0 is next year. We are going to Europe for a Mediterranean cruise. So
nice.
That's our big play. I've never planned anything so far in advance in my life.
That's awesome, though.
So, Yeah, that is amazing. I'm gonna stay on this. I know we just went way off topic with rent.
It's okay.
But let me get back on this for just a second, because I think these are valuable things, and it does play into investing, right? It does play into whatever it is your goal is. It plays into goal setting. I remember being on a cruise with you and Valerie, and you guys had a topic that was a big controversy at that time, and you worked through it. I'm not going to go into the nature of it because it's personal, but I remember that topic. I remember the issue that came up, and you guys, it was a big deal. It was one of those things that could separate people, and it didn't. You guys worked through it, and now you're celebrating your marriage, and you're celebrating how many kids now?
Yeah, two outside, one in the oven.
One in the oven. So I mean, just think if you had if you had allowed this difference of opinion or difference of directions that you were facing back then to really pull you apart, if you had ground your heels in, none of the future enjoyment you're going to have from that family, from those kids, from the grandkids that are going to come down the road, that would have all been erased.
Yep.
If you guys had allowed pride or different ideas to get in your way and not been willing to work through a major issue, that's a big deal.
It is.
Think about the life that would have been missed. And so that's what really makes you sad for all the people you see that just walk away from each other.
Yep.
Their commitment level is so surface deep that when one thing comes up, they just walk, and it just takes away those, you can't, what's the old phrase? You can't make old friends fast.
Yep.
Old friends take time.
They do. And so that, to tie this back into investing a little bit too, though, is that people have goals. So for example, on the Ironman, I obviously had the goal. People ask me, how did you not quit? What were you thinking? Because they knew I struggled through the bike. And then to have to run a marathon after that. Like, what were you thinking? And I just, what would quitting feel like in the moment? It would feel incredible. It'd feel like a huge weight has just been lifted off. But what about when I wake up the next day? What about the day after that? What about a month later? What about a year later? How would I feel about that decision if I chose to quit? And so whether it's, running a triathlon or in your marriage, like, how's that going to feel when all of a sudden grandkids have to go to 2 different houses on Christmas? Right. And balance all that. How's that going to feel? And then what does this have to do with real estate? If you're thinking about buying an investment property and renting it out, and you choose not to do that because you want to do something else with the money, maybe something more temporary, how's that going to feel in the next 3 months, 3 years, 30 years from now, when you could be technically giving your grandkid or your child a rental property, as an inheritance type of a thing, rather than a trip to Disneyland?
Only guys like me and you could go from discussing the deep inner workings of our marriage to how about investing in real estate?
Let's pivot to that. Yeah.
So, but that is true, right? So that long-term delayed gratification, I think I said that wrong.
You got me confused now. Delayed gratification.
Gratification, yes. That I keep confusing satisfaction and gratification. So that delayed sense of getting what you want, right? In the long term, I believe that after 25 years of doing real estate, talking to hundreds and hundreds of investors, managing hundreds of properties, thousands of sales, I believe that the number one change in people's future in the economic strata that they're in is that when they buy their first house, that they don't sell the previous one. So that right there is the path of a real estate investor. It's the first time you buy less house than you could afford because you didn't sell the previous one to buy more house. You get the people that they're in a perfectly good 3-bedroom, 2-bath. They might need a 4-bedroom, because their family's growing, but instead they go out and buy a 6-bedroom monster Mac mansion, as they call it, right?
Yep. Their forever home.
Their forever home, and it's not their forever home.
You know that.
I know that. I love that. I'm a real estate broker, right? I love the fact that people aren't satisfied with what they buy for more than, 5 years. Great. We're going to sell you 4 or 5 houses, right? But what if you stayed in the same house for just one more cycle? And during that cycle, you were able to buy 3 investment properties, right? And then as the market peaked, you were able to sell 2 of those investment properties and pay off the 3rd one and keep it forever. Ain't that amazing, right?
That is incredible.
I once rented a duplex. I bought a new house and I rented a duplex. I was actually renting from a local builder, right? And I thought, man, I'm so cool. I'm going to pay this to his company name because I knew his company name, right? And he's a local builder. Everybody would know his name. I knew his company name, and I wrote the first rent check to his company. I got a call back from the office. They said, nope, you can't do that. You got to write it to him personally. I said, what do you mean? Well, he had built that house and paid for it 25 years ago, 30 years ago. It was in his personal name. It had always been in his family. He never sold it, right? So it just tells you the value of getting that one house paid off. And even though this guy was a multi-millionaire, very large developer in the area, he still owned that one duplex. And it was still in his name, still making his family money 30 years later.
Incredible. So cranking it out.
Still cranking it out. Still getting that rent check every month, right?
Wow.
Putting that money to work for you. So now we're back to the rent market.
Yes. So rents. If somebody's thinking about selling their house, what's happening right now in the rental market? What would you tell that person?
Yeah. So right now is a great time to rent if you have that situation, right? You already own the house and you've got that property there and you want to just basically put it in the ice box. And that's what I tell agents. Hey, send me your referral. If it's not selling now, I'll put it in the freezer. We'll collect rents on it while we're waiting. And then when the market turns again or your client feels like they want that cash out at whatever price, then at that point, we'll go ahead and sell it. And so that's what I would tell people. If you already own that property and you're wanting to put it in the ice box, don't let it sit empty. Go ahead, live your life, do your lifestyle. Move where you need to move to take that job, and let's turn your property into a rental. Rents right now have kind of tapered off a little bit in the local area. At a national level, they're down about 3%. In our local area, we're seeing a bifurcation, kind of like what we see in the pricing. We also see that in the rentals. The lower end is scooted up, so the lower end costs more to rent. That 2-bedroom, that 1-bedroom, that smaller place, smaller house, those prices have come up and are still climbing. But when you get up into the upper end, 5 bedrooms, the bigger houses, the nicer neighborhoods, we're starting to see those rents level off a little bit.
Okay.
And the reason I think is like what we said in the beginning, the market is tired. The market has reached that saturation point to where it's like, man, the jobs, the income, can we really afford to pay $4,000 in rent? We have people who can. I've got rentals at $6,500, at $5,000. So I've got people who can do that. But the normal run-of-the-mill property in Roseville, Rockland, when you're starting to get up into that $4,000 range, you're starting to push the boundaries. Maybe 45, but it's not moving up like it was. It's actually dropping down a little bit in those nicer homes. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So my concern when with sellers is they think, hey, I'll just rent it out for 6 months. I'm like, no. This is a long-term play.
Yeah.
Because prices are softening, and if you're wanting to get more than what the market can bear right now, that means prices will have to appreciate. So if you're going to rent, this is like more of like a long-term type of a solution. How long, what's the shortest, if somebody's wanting to sell their house and the market today isn't going to net them what they want, what would you recommend being the minimum length of time that they rent that property out when they factor in potential vacancies, appreciation, depreciation, in the rental market, and then flipping the property to get it ready to go back on the market?
Yeah, I think that you need to be more in the line of 18 to 24 months.
Okay.
For one, it's really impossible. We don't see in the future that far out there being a large increase in pricing, right? Not enough to cover the increase that's needed, right? So right now, I figure that most everybody on the market could sell if they drop their price 10%.
Yep.
I mean, that's just the numbers, right? When I look at what's selling versus what's not selling, there's a 10% gap, right? And so that tells us that what's selling and what's pending, those pendings are 10% lower. They're not lower in square footage. They're not lower in features. They're just lower in the fact that their homeowners that own them are willing to take the right number for the price.
Correct.
So that 10% adjustment would solve most problems. So now what you're really asking is, how long is it going to take for the market to go up 10 to 12%?
Exactly.
That's a different question. That's best predictions right now is somewhere in the 2 to 4% per year range for the next 2 to 3 years. We can't see further than 3 years because of all the dynamics associated with pricing and who's going to be in office and what the interest rate is and things like that. You just can't see further out than that 2 to 3 year window. And I don't see 12% increase in the next 2 to 3 years. So what you're really asking is, how much would they be willing to come down in the future? What's that number going to look like? And can I balance it out? I can put it on ice and get a good solid rent. I'll put a good solid tenant in there. And there's always risk associated with that, but we're going to do our best to get that done. We've got a lot of amazing tools to enable us to do that. But that's where we're at. Now, different case scenario, investing. Right? Mm-hmm. This is a different person. This is not the one. Go ahead and finish your thought on the seller. I think you had something else to ask there.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so I've been telling sellers is basically 2 years. Plan on roughly 2 years renting it out. If you're comfortable with that, then absolutely. I'll get you connected with Barry over at Expert Property Management.
Yep.
And we'll go down that route. But when they hear that 2 years, they tend to backpedal a little bit, and they're not quite comfortable. They think it's just going to be a quick 6 months, maybe a year commitment, and they're not. They don't like the 2 year number.
Let's talk about the 6 months. Do you like to move?
Nope, I hate it.
Is it
almost as much as Iron Man's?
Yeah, it's like for most people, they don't really think about it. But when you ask them, how do you like the move? And they just hate it.
Yeah,
it is the worst singular thing they want to do. Well, guess what? Let's say you're a good neighborhood, a good house. I'm going to just pick the Rockland, for example, right?
Okay.
Or Roseville. Right, it's a nice house. It costs $600,000-$700,000. The rents are going to be between $2,500 and $4,500. Right, depends on the situation. Right, so probably about $3,000 in rent. Right, so the person that can afford to pay that rent doesn't like to move either. If they're a good quality tenant with good credit scores and a good job and a good rental history, they don't want to move somewhere for 6 months. The most common question I get from tenants, or maybe not the most, but one of the most common questions is this owner planning on selling? Is this owner planning on keeping this as a rental? Why? Because they want to live there for a few years.
Yeah.
The minimum lease I'm going to put out is going to be a year. Now, I could go lower, but again, the person you attract, the tenant you attract with that lower lease time period doesn't want to do it. And if they do, there's a problem.
Yeah,
they've got something going on that's causing them, in most cases, to want that shorter rent period. So I really would concur with you. If you're not planning on doing it for 2 years, don't do it. Just lower your price 10% and get out the door.
Yeah, move on.
Right. So it's just a big deal. So
agreed. Well, when we come back, we're going to be talking about investing, specifically property management and investing. And I'd like to learn more about some of the tools you have. I like to peek behind the curtain a bit.
Awesome. Will do.
All right, Thanksgiving is almost here. The holidays, Christmas is just around the corner. My wife is making her world-famous clam dip and peanut butter pie. How about you? What are your favorite recipes? Well, if you're thinking, hey, wouldn't it be nice to be in our new home by the time the holidays come around so we can invite all of our friends and family over? But you know what? There's not enough time. Baloney. There's plenty of time, but only when you work with our good friend Johnny Jennings and his team at Made for More Realty. They are the best. In fact, maybe that's one of the reasons why they were voted best team in Roseville 3 years in a row, why they have over 1,000 five-star Google reviews. They're going to get you the most money for your home or find you that perfect home within your budget in the fastest amount of time. So what do? You just Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty, and he'll make sure that you are in your new home, selling your home, or moving into that new home before the holidays get here. There is time. So again, just Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty and get more for your home.